Okay, so what I'm trying to say about this presuppositional apologetics is that it raises real issues that, I mean, seriously, most of you, like almost 100% of you, don't, have an answer to. Right? And a lot of you aren't even considering the question. You're like, well, I'm not even considering the question. How could I make a mistake when I'm not even considering the question? It's because you're sitting on some laurel or some dogma or some mistake and error. If you don't have an answer to this, now as a person, you don't have to have an answer. But that means you lack an answer. And it's been, this question has been asked for thousands of years, but where do the axioms of logic come from? And it's not abstract. Well, it is abstract, but it's not so abstract that you don't have a frame of reference for it. I mean, we're talking about the law of identity, the law of the excluded middle, the law of cause and effect. These are things that we take as principles and then draw conclusions from. We take them as axioms. Now, where do they come from? If you assume that they're true, where do they come from? How do they just show up true without any logical argument to support them? And if they do have a logical argument to support them, what are the principles that are the principles of that argument from which they are deduced? Right? And the answer is that there is no such automatic proof. There is no such self cause. Ideas of self cause and self justification come from some of the final justifications for God, which is the presuppositional argument. Now, think about it. Presuppositions. Before you make a supposition, you have to assume something. And then the apologetics is saying that since you do that, you must rely on something, and there is nothing to rely on so powerful as to pull axioms out of your ass other than God. Now, the alternate view is this embodied mind idea that where you pull these ideas from is millions of years of evolution. Now, the problem is, from a philosophical, from a mathematical kind of sense, where you want this absolute truth still, that's not good enough. Saying that, well, I'm a muskrat and this is what I've learned as true to help me survive is not really the kind of thing that your Platonist is going for, right? So, how do how do you beef it up? How do you justify it in the sense that you still get your absolute truth? Well, you don't with your embodied mind, your embodied cognition. What you have is like ideas of cause and effect. They might be reliable. I mean, after 6 million years as a chimp, as a couple 100,000 years as a human, we might have, by process of elimination, excluded a few fantasies and come up with some solid ideas, right? It's possible. Again, it's not absolutely true because it's dependent on our biology and evolution. So we might have an idea of cause and effect, but it might not be perfect. It might have to change. Maybe it's just like a net capture around a phenomena. You've got the phenomena, but you don't really have it in its absolute particulars. There's still things, ways to improve your idea of it, of its shape. Obviously, that's what I think is the case. I don't think there is, because when you say the law of identity, first of all, I can imagine conditions and contexts in which the law of identity, A equals A, misses things. It's not complete, right? And just in principle and in general and in fact, I don't think we have absolute definitions of words like equals or what it means to be a variable or what it means to be the variable A. I think the concept of cause and effect has changed over time. I think most people's idea is that you have the cause and then there is an effect. have a cause before and then an effect. But when I notice that I am pushing my mouse, moving my mouse, the cause and effect happen at the same time. So I think the concept of cause and effect is not so reliable to say, well, it's an axiom, it's absolute. No, you take it as true, qua axiomatic, in order to do deduction. And this is useful to a certain degree, but not absolutely, right? And that's why I like presuppositional apologetics, because I think that this is the problem that I'm trying to address with people with my relativistic skepticism. Right? This is the subject. I have an answer to how you address the infinite regression, why it's not infinite, where you really start from. And in the pursuit of my answer, my personal answer, I found other people have answers, like the embodied mind theory, that while not complete in its own sense, does answer where we start from. We're starting from the tip of an evolutionary process that brought us to this point, where of course we have ideas of non-contradiction and identity, because they're really useful. And yes, they have a grain of truth, and maybe there's even a Platonic realm where that grain of truth is somehow perfectly solid and absolute, and we're winnowing down to it. Maybe. But our experience is merely that we have an approximation of an idea of consequence. We call it the law of cause and effect right now, but it's undergoing massive paradigmatic changes. So, I mean, I would like to leave it on the point that I think, most of you, 99.9% of you, have no clue that what the answer to this problem is, or that there's even a problem, right? Even the smartest of you, it seems like this is just totally ignored, and yet it's the most fundamental question we have in philosophy. Now, it doesn't have to be everybody's hobby to sort that out, but I do believe that we'd be better off if we had a international society where recognition of this problem was universal or near universal. I mean, I don't really care that everybody has the same answer or preferred approach to thinking about what the answer might be, but I do think everybody should understand the problem. That's just me.